we have taken a view that part of the reason why we are where we are as a country in relation to the deterioration of the generating capacity was that we have not been sticking to planned maintenance, we have not been sticking to philosophy maintenance, and that also had to do with the fact that Eskom's balance sheet was severely compromised. There was little resources to invest on the maintenance side. And what had been happening over a period of time is that the units have been exploited without the necessary maintenance, planned maintenance, philosophy maintenance, and that has caught up with us. And that's why we are in the situation where we find ourselves in. But with the fiscal relief that was provided for by the National Treasury, the 254 billion rand of fiscal support given to Eskom, part of the conditions was that the Eskom needs to invest heavily on the maintenance side. And that's why we have opted to go to the second option. And that second option, one, we are going to stick to planned maintenance. We are going to stick to philosophy maintenance. We do accept that in the short term, is going to result into, if you like, the possibility of intensified load shedding. I'm saying that possibility because if that ramped up planned maintenance and philosophy maintenance is accompanied by unplanned capacity loss factor, that is the other units that are tripping as and when, then it means that there will be an intensification of load shedding, and which is essentially the situation that we find ourselves in. Just to give you a bit of context, if you remember when we announced the winter outlook, we mentioned a number of interventions. And one of the key interventions that we mentioned there was that we are going to slow down on the planned maintenance. We are going to slow down on planned maintenance because before we entered the winter period, we had done some degree of intense planned maintenance, and we allowed the units to run for that period of about 4 months to continue to give us the megawatts, because as anticipated during winter, we're going to have an intensified levels of demand. And you know that we reached a peak demand of about 33,900 megawatts during winter. And then in terms of that winter plan, we did indicate that we are going to curb our planned maintenance to be at 2,500 megawatts. And now that we are entering the warmer periods of the year, we have gone through the winter period with a relatively very little harm. Of course, we reached stage 6 at some period, but not as severe as we had anticipated on our own accounts. When we generated the worst case scenario, we had said that if the unplanned capacity loss factor, that is the amount and the rate at which the units are failing, was to reach 18,000 megawatts plus, and then that peak demand was going to be above about 34,000 megawatts. We are going to reach higher stages of load shedding, even stage 8 and beyond. Of course, we know that we didn't reach that in part because we had slowed down on planned maintenance, and we also ran if you like, our open cycle gas turbines, if you like, the peak asset for the ones that helps us with peak demand, they were on load most of the time. And as a result of that, we did share with you that we had spent a lot of money on diesel so that we were able to survive the winter period. Now that we have entered the summer period, the demand has gone down. So we are ramping up on our planned maintenance. We are ramping up on the planned maintenance for the reasons that I've shared with you. And those reasons are, just to recap, to ensure that we are able to build a degree of resilience in the system, to make sure that the system, the units are reliable, to make sure that the units give us as many hours of generating capacity as possible, and also that that generating capacity must approximate their designed capacity. So let me just share with you just a slide that indicating the numbers of what has happened over the past 2 days, so that there's a better appreciation of what led to this intensification stage 6 load shedding. Again, you can see the third column, the one that speaks to what the title, the heading says, planned outages. Remember, when we went into the winter period, I just made the point that we kept that at 2,500 as a part of our winter plan. And you can see that we've been ramping that up, ramped it up. And of course, on the 1st of September, we surpassed even the 6,000 megawatts of planned outages. And yesterday we're at 5,894 megawatts, and today is the 5,467 megawatts. So this is consistent with the approach that we are taking to say that given the lower levels of peak forecast, we are going to ensure that we are ramping up on planned maintenance so that we are building a degree of reliability in this unit. So there's nothing new really there, what I'm sharing with you. But what is significant, what has led to the intensification of stage 6 is the fourth column, the unplanned capacity loss factor there, the number of units that are failing. Outside that which we have taken out as part of our philosophy and planned maintenance, you can see that during the week, the 28th of August, although we ramped up almost double our winter period in terms of planned outages, but the unplanned capacity loss factor was sitting at 14,771. Remember that what I keep on sharing with you during our weekly briefing was that we want to ensure that we keep the unplanned capacity loss factor at sub 15,000 megawatts. So we're getting closer to that. Some stages you can see also on the 31st of August, we're 14,922 megawatts. On the 1st of September, we're at 14,515 megawatts. But what has happened over the past few days is that yesterday was that the unplanned capacity loss factor shot up, and it shot up, it went to 17,297 megawatts in addition to that ramped up capacity, and that necessitated the need for us to be able to initiate stage 6 load shedding. So what is the message that we are conveying? The message that we are conveying is that the stage 6 load shedding that we are experiencing now is largely on the account of first us ramping up planned maintenance, and of course the issues of unplanned capacity loss factor. If you see historically what had been the biggest contributor to stage 6 load shedding was two things, was essentially the unplanned capacity loss factor going up, and also the peak demand going up. And the last time we had it was when the peak demand was at 33,900 megawatts. So we thought that we have to give you a sense of where we are, so we do understand that as part of this approach there are inherent risks in the system, and that the inherent risk has been realized over the past day or two, and then we're going to share with you how we are retaining these units back into service. And largely here I'm talking on those units that have gone out as a result of trips. Mr. Nxumalo and the team will share with you, and also to give you an indication on those units that we have taken out as a result of our planned maintenance. When are we expecting them to come back on stream? I really want to conclude just this part of my opening remarks to say that there will not be a shortcut to the ending of load shedding, and at least on this in this instance is because of the actions that we are taking to ensure that we are able to ramp up planned maintenance, and that's largely a reason why we are where we are. So it's important that there's that greater levels of appreciation. Of course, there's going to be some degree of dynamism in how we deal with this. So if the situation were to deteriorate further, we'll find a way of ensuring that also on the planned maintenance we're able to slow it down. But you'll see when we share with you that we have confidence that in the next few days towards the end of the week, those units are going to come back on stream. I'm going to invite Mr. Nxumalo just to share with you some degree of detail on how we are approaching this. I thought that at an aggregate macro level, I should share with you what is the general approach. Of course, there's nothing new. These are the things I share with you on a weekly basis, but it's important that now, because we're at this stage 6 load shedding, that we occasion an opportunity for us to share with you in detail what has led to this, but most importantly, what is it that we are doing to ensure that we address the situation. Thanks, Takane. I'll hand over to Mr. Nxumalo.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good morning to the members of the media. I think the Minister has sketched it very well in terms of what has happened. I think the critical thing that I also just want to emphasize on is that we have agreed that we will not cut back on the philosophy in our philosophy maintenance. And when we are also, the sooner we would start doing that as well, it prepares you very well for the intense summer maintenance that is still coming, so that some of these units that go out early, they still come back on time. So that is key in terms of what has happened. And then also that of maintaining the UCLF around below 15,000. The minister has just touched on that. So I will be going through some of the details just to indicate what exactly has happened here. If you see that reddish line there that talks to that, you would see that the minister, if you look at from the second last week of August, we were actually running fairly well as well. And then I think I want to focus on the period there from the second, because of September, because that's when then we had that blip. Because what it means then when we increase this planned maintenance to this level, that is about 3,000 from the winter period, it actually reduces the reserve that you have. So if you have a day where you lose more unit, then you start to use more of the reserves, which also created a problem. You see that we have lost a number of units there on the 2nd of September, because before that we could still recover. From the 29th, that's when we started also to increase the stages, because if you look at the pump storage reserve there, the line of the pump storage, it also started going down there around the 29th. That's when we were going to stage 4. We could still maintain and recover, as you would see there, but from the 2nd, that was the blip that also created a problem for the system, because some of those units that came off there, they have not returned. We are still busy with them, save for that Kendall 6. So that created then that our reserve got a bit depleted. You don't have enough time to recover. So, but I think the first thing that I also should have indicated is that stage 6 is something that we are at all costs working to avoid because of its impact, as indicated by the minister. So some of those units that we have to take off now, especially yesterday morning, was due, because that's another second factor that we have taken into account to say when it comes to safety of the employees or safety on the plant itself, we will not compromise on that as well, although it's going to result into this type of pain. So we had yesterday morning, we had to take a unit at Medupi 5, and then also that Lethabo 6, they were mostly the safety issue, and that grill number 6 as well. There were safety issue on these units, so they should be returning from tomorrow and Thursday, so those units will start to return. And then the other factor I want to indicate here, on that brown reddish line there, we are sitting with the 2,100 megawatts from Kusile unit 1 to 3. So which also put us, because that is not varying at this thing, it's constant. So it's staying there. So one of the main focus that I want to also give the public is that's where also our focus is being as well, to make sure that we are working to bring those Kusile unit back online, because that also will reduce by 2,000 that line, and then we will have enough reserve then when it comes. So that is the first thing that we will be doing. So those units, as we indicated earlier previously, that The initial plan was end November and December, so we have managed to pull back on those units so that the first unit will come in October somewhere. So that will also assist us to start reducing that line and create a data reserve, because those are the big units. And then the second tranche of units that has been problematic over the winter period was the Tutuga units. So where we were running on average with 1 unit. So Tutuga has started to bring the units back. So we went to 3. We are going back to 3 from tomorrow. By the end of this week, we will be on 4 units. So that is also part of the plan that we have to cushion as we are increasing the maintenance, to say these units that have been off for quite some time that we need to come back now. That is at Tutuga and Usile units. So then that will help us to increase that gap, so that we go back to the lower stages of load shedding that we have seen to the winter period. So yeah, towards the end of this week, we should be in the position to start reducing the stages from the current stage 6. And then also we will have recovered as well on our reserve. As you would see that the pump storage are starting to recover as well, because pump storage play 2 roles as well. Apart from just being emergency, they also play a role of certain level that the system operator shouldn't go below it as part of the black start capabilities for the country. So we need to maintain that balance as well. So given that difficulties, then that was then resulted in us increasing that stages. As you could see that the full load losses on the Sunday, that's when we increased it, moved from 8,800 to 11,000 when we lost those big units, mainly at Dover, Kendal, 2 units at Dover as well, and Drakensberg. So that's when we started to increase. So some of those units, then the plan is starting to return now from tonight, and then tomorrow and Thursday, we should have most of those ones return. So the other thing that we are doing as well to ensure that we minimize the risk on the system over the weekends, we also do what we call short-term maintenance, planned maintenance. Those are the units that it's got a specific risk that needs like 2 or 3 days to fix. We always plan them over the weekend. That's why when those units came off on Saturday, we had other units that were on short-term maintenance to return from Monday and today that were also off as well. That what just exacerbated the situation, and then more reserves were used. But we are now starting to recover. So towards the end of the week, I'm confident that we will be able to return to lower stages, and then we will start then focusing on our normal maintenance. So I think the planned maintenance, which was on the last slide, I think the minister have talked to that to say there is unit that we have already taken. So I'm not going to go to that slide to say those ones that are on philosophy maintenance, obviously they are affected now on this picture, and we will not unnecessarily, we will not compromise on those ones, because we want to buy ourselves that reliability as we move forward. So that's the assurance I wanted to give, to say, although that we are on stage 6 now, I don't foresee that it should last longer than up towards the end of this week. We should be starting to recover as well. And then the positive thing is that Tutuga is also ramping up from the average 1 unit. They should be on 4 units by the end of the week. That also would give us the buffer as well, because the good thing as well that is coming through from Tutuga is that the units are no longer tripping every day when they return. So it means that the team has managed now to really do some good work. So once the units are online, they are not tripping every day as it used to happen in the past year. So yeah, Minister, I will hold it there in terms of what we are doing to deal with this situation. So the team is hard at work. deal with this most undesirable situation. Thank you very much, Minister.
No, thank you very much, Biggie. I think that was helpful. I think we thought that just beyond the macro picture, we needed to give you that level of detail. When are these units coming back on stream? And like Biggie was saying, at the risk of repeating the points he was making, is that the return of the units at Tutuka and more significantly the return of the units at Kusile are going to give us the necessary buffer so that as and when we continue with this maintenance regime, the path that we have taken, it's not going to result in the intensification of load shedding. So we are doing everything possible to ensure that the practices in the past that they undermine the ability of these units to be resilient, to be reliable, we are going to address that. So maintenance is a focal point of the work that we are doing. And we accept also that it's got its own costs, and we're seeing what those costs are. And like Peggy was saying, we will not buy ourselves a way out of load shedding. We are going to do the right things. I think it's important that we emphasize this, and it's the approach that the Peggy has taken. The team very grateful, also with the support of the board led by Mr. Mann, is that maintenance is going to be key. We're going to suffer short-term pains like we're doing now, but you'll see that there's going to be long-term gain. When we say we're out of this situation, we'll be having some degree of confidence in relation to the reliability of this. That this situation that we are currently experiencing is largely driven by the actions that we have taken rather on the planned maintenance. They just happen to coincide with a number of units going out, but it's important that we are able to proceed with this philosophy. Maintenance is the right thing to do, and that's how you're going to ensure that we protect these assets and we continue to exploit them well into the future. So thanks, Takani. We are ready to take the questions ourselves and the team from Eskom. Thanks.
Indeed, thank you very much, Minister, for taking us through the status quo, as well as outlining the broader vision and plan in respect to our sustainable energy security as a country. Thank you as well to Mr. Nxumalo for the brief. Indeed, I would now like to afford journalists who have joined us, as well as those who have shared their questions on our WhatsApp group, the GCIS updates, to please share their questions. We'll now hand over to Josias, who will be taking us through some of the questions that have been shared on our GCIS WhatsApp group. In fact, I should just highlight that all questions should please be directed to the GCIS Media Updates group. We will then air them on the platform. So can I hand over to you, Ishmael, to take us through the questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chairperson. Indeed, we do have few questions from the WhatsApp groups, as well as recognized on the charts online on the MS Teams. The first question is from William Horn from Netberg 24. Minister, does the rapid decline in EAF over the last week represent a resurgence of events such as where contractors are purposefully compromising, for instance, mills, to ensure more work for themselves? Or is this solely normal wear and tear that has just popped up again? The second question from William. Minister, what is the projected maintenance budget for the current financial year? And how does this compare to the previous financial year? And what is the average PCLF of the OCGTs for the YDT? And we also have two questions from Kaylin Pillay from Independent Online. Minister, what is the duration for the increased plant maintenance scheduled for? And when will consumers experience an ease in the high stages of load shedding? And for how long can we expect to be on stage 6? And we also have a few questions from the chat group. The first ones come from Lamis Omaji from News 24. Minister, can Eskom say what exactly went wrong at the respective units that have contributed to stage 6 load shedding? Have there been spikes in unplanned losses? If so, by how much? Or has it been a consistent trend over the past 12 months? And what are the current partial losses? Have they also been increased? And we have the last 3 questions from Terence Kramer, Engineering News. Minister, given the Quebec Unit 1, the 3 Kusile units and possibly Medupi 4 will be coming on at the height of the typical summer maintenance season. Why is it Eskom ramping up plant maintenance so aggressively this early in the season? And can you confirm that the Kusile units will be retaining at their full nameplate? If so, how have you managed the air pollution constraint that was initially seen as preventing full output? And when will the summer output be provided? That is the questions for now, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josias, for all the questions. I'll hand over to the Minister for responses. Thank you.
No, it's fine. Thank you very much for those questions. I think that they are pointed. I'm going to ask Becky and the team to come in, and then I'll come at the end if there's any question outstanding. Becky and the team.
Thank you very much, Minister. I will take them. Thanks for the question from the colleagues. I think let me start with the questions from Terence in terms of the Kusile unit, and he indicated this Medupi 4. It's Kusile 5. Medupi 4 is only coming back next year, July. So those are the Kusile 4, which is the new Kusile 5, which is a new unit that is planned to come towards the end of November as well. So that is the one. The Kusile 1, 2, and 3, yes, definitely they will be returning to their full capacity. And then the issue of emission pollutions. Remember, what is not available currently at Kusile is only the FGD, and the FGD is there to deal with sulfur. So the emissions, they are still, we still got the emission abatement technologies, which is the bag. So Kusile is coming, it's got the bag filter. So that emissions in terms of the particulate emissions are not impacted at all. So the units will be returning at the correct capacity as well. So it's given what we have asked exemptions for. So, and then I did talk to Kusile Unit 5, that is also planned to come towards the end of November. So, and then the other question was then why do we aggressively ramping the maintenance? Maybe let me explain that actually we are not aggressively, we are still, because when we do the plan, we do it for the whole period as well. So we know when this unit comes and what type of maintenance is going to happen. So the units that are now on the long-term maintenance, which is the first tranche of it, and then I did indicate that there's those that we call short-term maintenance, which we only take if it's a 4 days required to deal with a specific risk. We will take it, say, typically on a Thursday evening, return for Monday evening peak. So those are the things that are ongoing to deal with the short-term risk. But the units that are on the long-term outages, like the likes of Kendall 3, Krill Unit 2, and those ones, those are the ones that are part of that plan. And we have to working together with the system operator, taking account of the return of those units at Kusile as well. And then you will see that's why we are talking about that buffer, because they return really at the height of the maintenance period. And then the units, or the question that was also asked was what went wrong on these breakdowns that has happened. I think I did indicate that Medupi, for an example, what happened yesterday morning, Medupi Unit 1 had a breakdown on the chain. There's a chain that is removing the ash underneath the boiler. So that chain, it broke, but it broke inside the boiler. So then it becomes unsafe for the maintenance team to do that. So we needed to cool the boiler down and return. I just saw that that unit just returned now as planned. It was a day. So as Lethabo 6, we had a leak on the safety valves, and it became unsafe for the station. So we took it off last night together with the unit at Matla. That had also had a breakdown on the air heater. So they couldn't fix it from the outside. They needed to get inside the boiler. So the bigger duration is just the cooling of the boilers and then do the repairs on them. And so as Duva as well, we've got 2 units that broken down on the what we call the gas air heaters. Because of the location of the fault, it needed those units to be taken off. So those are the units that will be coming off back now towards the end of the week. And then there was an issue about contractors compromising the mills and all of that. Not really. It's not the case here that the contractors are creating work for themselves, because remember, we are managing wherever there is contractors that is doing the work. Our team is supervising that. The job is planned by our teams. So I wouldn't sit and say there was any contractor that has planned to damage the plant so that they create work for themselves, because we are also working with all our contractor partners as well to make sure that they are also contracted now on the performance of the stations where they are working. And then there was a question about the budget for maintenance. It's still about 10.5 billion. It's in line with what, because our type of maintenance that we are doing every year it's almost the same. The GOs, the major overhauls, and the minor repairs that we are also doing here. Yeah, I think I've covered. I did talk about stage 6. When are we planning to deal with it? To say towards the end of this week, we are planning to start going down to lower stages as well. And then the last question, Minister, was about the partials. Partials has not been too volatile. Literally, it goes down. It's been around 5,900 as well for this period that we are having this one.
All right, so we're going to come out of that briefing. Of course, speaking there is Mr. Bheki Nxumalo, who's the
units
Eskom
that had the safety risk that we couldn't keep them on road to plan them either for short term. That's what has caused this situation we are in. Thanks, Minister.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Bheki. Maybe just to add, so the one point that Bheki makes is that on the issues around some of the conduct, I think the point that is being made is that essentially they are creating work for themselves. So one of the things that we have introduced at Eskom, of course, the leadership of the board and Bheki and across the Eskom team on the generation side, was that you need just to rethink differently on how you incentivize the performance contractors, and really they are incentivized also on the performance of the units. So I think they extract a lot of value that is from a contractor's point of view when the units remain on load for a longer period of time. So there's a disincentive to have the units on and off. So that's an innovation that Bheki and the team have introduced, so that we are trying to disincentivize or penalize a situation where there's poor workmanship on any work that is being commissioned by Eskom as a result of the units failing. And then maybe just to go on to, once I can see them on the chat group, I think there's an issue there that is being raised by Vuyo Mashula in relation to the issues on the distribution side. The fact that there's been a number of communities that have not had electricity over a period of time, and this is communities that don't have electricity outside the load shedding schedule. We did identify that the biggest problem there is on the failure of the distribution infrastructure. So we're working with the head of distribution and Eskom. We're working with the SALGA and the respective municipalities to address that situation. Just to give you a sense, the other day I was in Orange Farm, and the community was telling me just in the Orange Farm area alone, there's about 175 transformers that have failed as a result of illegal connection and technical losses, overload on the infrastructure, and that has not been replaced. And some of those communities were making the point that they haven't had electricity for the past 6 years. So we're working on that solution. Of course, there's a requirement first for communities to pay a penalty, and in this instance, communities had already paid a penalty of up to 6,000 rands or 500 over a period of 12 months. Secondly, is that communities must agree to the smart metering. The communities have already agreed to that. And the third one is a provision should be made to ensure that the poor and the indigent, they do get their allocation of free basic electricity as part of the government policy on how we are going to provide a social wage for the poor. So we're working with Eskom to design that, and then we'll be rolling out that distribution infrastructure. And in many of these communities, those three conditions had been met. And then the question that is coming from our colleagues from, I think, is Business Weekly, in relation to assurance to business, in particular the mining sector. So first is that we are using this opportunity to communicate, of course, using our multiple platforms as the media, the work that we're doing. I mean, the detail that Mr. Nxumalo has shared is important so that there's some degree of appreciation from private sector, from household, just the South African population, on what has led to stage 6. I think it's important we're making that point. In this instance, this stage 6 is primarily on the back of ramped up the plant maintenance, which just occurred, happened to intersect with the failure of these units. And as Mr. Nxumalo has indicated, planned maintenance continues. We are adopting that philosophy, and we do accept that it's going to come at some cost if it's accompanied by unplanned capacity loss factor. But we're also using the opportunity to tell you which of those units are coming on stream when. So it just indicated that as we're speaking here, Medupi has just come back, and we have indicated that this intensity was going to taper down as we approach the end of the week. We're able to share with you what's coming on stream. And we do appreciate that this has got huge implications on the South African economy, as the point has been made there that the rand has hit 19 rands to the dollar. And I think the insinuation there, and I guess it's correct, is on the account of the intensity of load shedding. So we do accept that there's a correlation between load shedding and the performance of the economy. The Minister of Finance, the South African Reserve Bank, does make the point that the load shedding is a structural impediment. So will the South African economy won't recover for as long as there's load shedding? And I guess that the market are likely going to react in the manner that they do. So we hope that sharing these things publicly. Remember that previously we'll have stage 6 load shedding. We should simply issue a statement, but we're taking it further beyond what Ms. Mokoena is doing diligently to communicate by issuing a media statement. We're taking it beyond the media statement because I'm sure that there are deeper questions that you want to ask, and that's why we afford you this opportunity so that we're able to respond to these questions and we're able to alert, if you like, the markets and also the South African economy and business on the work that we're doing. And there's better planning on their side because we're able to say that towards the end of the week, you'll see this tapering down. But I think most importantly is just to know what are the causes of this stage 6 load shedding. So essentially something that as a result of the work that we are doing. So yeah, I'm not sure if there are any additional questions, Zakani.
Ishmael, can we check with you if there are any additional questions?
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, we do have about 8 additional questions. I'll start with the Nin Erasmus from Business Day. The Minister previously said that there were early signs of sustained improvement in Eskom's generation performance, but unplanned outages for June, July, and August was worse than during those months in the previous year. By when should we expect to see the generation system improve as a result of the increase in maintenance? Will maintenance be delayed to keep load shedding from exceeding stage 6? We also have a question from Susan Comrie Amabungani. The philosophy maintenance program has been running for 3 years, and for 3 years, we have been told that more maintenance will result in the turnaround of the EAF. Despite this, the EAF has continued to decline. Would it not be more honest and more realistic to acknowledge that increased maintenance is now what is required to manage a decline and eventual shutdown of the coal fleet? We also have a question from Richard Maidopi News. Minister, considering that the draw to charge an electric vehicle at home is around 7,000 watts, surely the impact of this on the grid is quite significant since vehicles will be plugged in as people return from work. This will coincide with the peak load times. Is Eskom or the government tracking this since EVs are now being pushed in South Africa? The next is Jan Vermeulen from My Broadband. Looking at the minister's table, comparing the 29 August available capacity versus the peak forecasted demand to those figures from 31st August to the 4th of September. There isn't a substantial difference between capacity available and peak forecasted demand on those dates, yet load shedding was much less on the 29th of August. What is the reason for the difference? The next one is from Kgosientsho from Times Live. Minister, will you please just get clarity on what planned versus philosophy maintenance mean? Another question, Siphelele Dudla Business Report. Can you say with confidence that Eskom is performing reliable maintenance on its coal fleet when the units are breaking down so much, and since we are back to stage 6 load shedding? Where will the minister took over this portfolio? The next question, Christian Duplessis from Netwerk 24. Minister, are there plans to minimize load shedding during the Rugby World Cup, and can the minister make any promises in this regard? That's all for now, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Becky will go first, and then I'll come after Becky. Becky.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thanks to those questions. Let me start with the question from Kgosientsho, which talks to philosophy versus planned. I think this, to explain it in simpler terms, philosophy is based on the manufacturers of the equipment to say how do you do what type of maintenance in what interval. Like, for example, if the plant is going to run for 50 years, it will tell you that every 10 years you will do major overhauls on your turbines and all of those things, and then every 3 years you do some inspections. And so that is the philosophy. It talks to the whole life cycle of the equipment. And then the plant then is talked to say, when is it? It is planned, you know. So like you were saying now, for this year, we will do this unit in summer or on the 30th of August, the specific unit will come off for its own planned maintenance as part of the philosophy maintenance as well. So that's how we differentiate from the two. And then I also want to correct, there was a statement made that we started philosophy maintenance 3 years ago. No, that's not correct. In Eskom, we've been doing philosophy, as I've just explained now, that it's not the first time that we are doing this maintenance on the units. There might have been some delays in some years, but Eskom, we have been doing the maintenance. That's why we know what type of maintenance need to be done on each of the units. And then there was also a question, I think, from Susan that was talking to say there is a decline in EAF compared to the previous year. That's correct, but I think the context there is important. The previous year, if you recall, we have Kubek 1 was running. We've got Kusile 1, 2, 3, they were running, all of them. In total, they take over 3,000 megawatts. So that is the biggest. So it's very, if you were to compare that, you need to then to correct the base of your previous year's comparison, because if you look at that with these 3 units, this year actually it shows that it's been much better. The way we went through the winter as well without those. So that is the main reasons of the difference between the previous year and this year, because these units have not been around for almost the whole year now. So hence the biggest chunk of the EAF went through those units. There was an issue about whether we run the units harder, Terence, for breaks. No, I think from where we sitting together with the system operator, we don't plan around the events. We plan around the system and what is required, and we try to do what is necessary. So it was no plan that was put in to say this is the plan for bricks, so we need to run the machines harder as well, because it's also important to correct this fact as well of running the machines harder, because our machines are run according to their designs limitations as well. So I think I just wanted to touch on that one, Minister. And then there was another question that was talking to the comparison between the 29th and the 30th of August. If you recall, what I've said when I was presenting is that if you look at the 29 and look at the reserves were much higher as well, because then it doesn't mean that when the available capacity automatically comes down, but if the reserve was still adequate, we could still manage to deal with that. What happened and when we were starting to recover, then we had this additional breakdown that happened late Sunday evening and early yesterday that took those units like Medupi, Unit 5, and then Lethabo and Kriel and Duva. So then it caught us when the reservoir was at its lowest as well, when we were supposed to recover, and then we didn't get enough time to recover. That's really the difference between those two, Minister. Yeah, Minister, I think I've covered some of them just high level. Thanks.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Maybe just to say the following to Richard's question with regards to the charging of EVs. Of course, I mean, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the grid. One of the issues that we've been advocating for over a period of time is to also try and make interventions on the demand side. Of course, we are transitioning into a low carbon economy. EVs are a significant part of that calculus. So it's important that in our projection in relation to peak forecast, we are able to compute what is the impact of people charging their cars as they come back home. So yes, as we transition, I mean, that's the downside. If you think of it that way, that it increases on the demand side during the peak forecast, during the peak. So it's something that requires our attention. And frankly speaking, it's not something that we have begun to discuss extensively within government and also Eskom. But I guess it's a conversation that is necessary and urgent. But that conversation really doesn't arise for as long as we are able to ensure that we improve the performance of the grid, we are able to add new generation capacity, because when we do that, we are allowing the South African economy to grow at the rate that is desired, but also to make it possible for the new approaches in relation to how we use new technologies, and EV will fall in that broad category. And in relation to the performance over a period, I just forgot who raised the question. Our point is that one of the things that we have introduced, of course, it's not just our own advocacy, is the approach by the board led by Mr. Makwana and in particular Mr. Numan, when we sat together was that it's important that we stick to philosophy maintenance, plan maintenance, as he has explained it. Of course, there are short-term pains, but the long-term gain. We're able to build that resilience. That we are going to see those results immediately. No, you'll not be able to see them immediately, because there's a batch of these units that goes out, gets to be fixed, and then you take others out. It's over a period of time. But what has helped us a lot is that fiscal injection from National Treasury. Now, Mr. Nxumalo has got a degree of wiggle room from a financing and a funding point of view to be able to direct significant amount of resources towards maintenance. Previously, with a constrained balance sheet, without any assistance from the fiscals, just relying on the tariff increases, and of course, for objective reasons, NERSA was not approving the kind of tariff increases that Eskom wanted. That meant that there's a significant additional pressure on the Eskom balance sheet. Something had to give, and what was being compromised over that period was our investment in the maintenance, and that has caught up with us. So yes, we are investing in that maintenance, and Mr. Nxumalo and the team are doing exceptional work in addressing that. And then on the issues with regards to the Rugby World Cup, thanks, Becky has answered the question. How we manage the system is devoid of the major events. We really want to protect the system. We want to improve generating capacity. I would like to say to the general public that there will not be periods of load shedding during that time. But load shedding, remember, is an instrument available at the disposal of the system operator to make sure that you address demand and generation. And for as long as demand exceeds the generation, there is going to be load shedding. The point I made also when we were confronted with the BRICS, and the only reason or why you can't have a load shedding is if we follow the rules. Of course, you need to make the necessary application. There has to be a motivation if something is a national key point and all of that. But it's not arbitrary how we do it. But what underlines this really is the fact that the generation can't meet the demand, and therefore that's why you're having load shedding. So we can't give any assurances. That will be a function of whether we have enough generating capacity. Like I said, I mean, as we conclude this point, this part is to say that we will use this opportunity to engage with the South African public, just to share with you the brutal facts, honest, transparent, and accountable in relation to where we are, in relation to our performance. And the key message we're trying to bring across today was to say that this is principally on the back of this increased plant maintenance. And I do make the point every time when I present during our weekly updates to show you the trend line, where we were, and we're using May as a baseline. And what is the trend line? The trend line does show that there's an upward trajectory. A point was made about the available capacity that almost coming down. Yes, that is invariably going to be the case for as long as you are very aggressive on the plant maintenance. So plant maintenance will simply mean that I'm taking out the capacity that is available, although we can still exploit it. But as Mr. Nxumalo has indicated, plant maintenance is key, philosophy maintenance is key. We'll take it out, and it must be accounted for somewhere else. What that does is to reduce the capacity that is available. If we are to go back to the winter period, the available capacity was high because we reduced on the plant maintenance, and that reduction that gets to be added on the capacity that is available, and then you saw the EAF going up. In this instance, the EAF comes down as a result of us taking out these units, fixing them, and over a period of time, you are going to see that the EAF is resilient, is able to keep up to the levels that are better than what was the case when we entered into this space. We have to do this work. I think that's a message we want to convey to the South African public, to the household, ordinary people and business. Like someone made the point, the energy-intensive users. The point we are conveying is that our actions, in part, largely, are the ones that have led us to the intensification of load shedding, because it coincided with the unplanned capacity loss factor. But it's something that is within our control. Voluntarily, we took these units out really fix them so that we can have brighter days going forward. Brighter in this instance, the reliability of these units and the efficiency that we are able to extract out of these units. And as we have indicated, we'll see the improvements towards the end of the week. Just the question that was raised on how long will we be on stage 6, and we're able to illustrate that we want to introduce resilience. Of course, when we have our briefing on Sunday, we'll have an opportunity just to show you, give you more details on the performance of the grid, the system, and also how we project further improvements going into the future. So I really want to thank everyone who has made time, and really the point was to ensure that when we hit very difficult periods, we are not in hiding. We, as we have committed, will be in the public explaining what the situation is, open ourselves to interrogation in the same manner that we have interrogating the numbers. The robustness of the engagement is what is going to help to clarify the situation. So like I said, this is a new normal of ensuring that at every turn there's that accountability, especially when you hit the higher stages of load shedding. We're going to treat stage 6 with high levels of indignation. This is an unwelcome occurrence. Like I said, load shedding overall hurts the South African economy, but even more when you go to this level of intensification. But it was important that we share with you how we got to where we are now, and how we, most importantly, how we are getting out, and the units that are coming on stream. But once more, last word, just to thank everyone who has joined us, Becky and the team, and Sohomo on the transmission side. We continue to do the excellent work. It's tough, we do accept this, but we are more than confident that with this action, the cumulative actions, you will see that when we say load shedding is truly behind us, it's genuinely fully behind us. And these are the pains that we are suffering as a result of this approach, and we think that we are on the right course. But thank you very much to everyone, and thanks, Takan, for presiding over the conversation. Thanks.
Indeed, thank you very much, Minister, for the briefing, the responses, and the clarity. And thank you as well to Mr. Kgosientsho. This brings us to the end of our briefing, and the Minister indeed will continue to do his weekly media briefings. Thank you very much, colleagues from the media. Good afternoon to all of you. Thanks.